30 on Tuesday, January 28th, 2020. I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order and ask that we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for one nation, God. Just a friendly reminder that this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio. First item on the agenda is the approval of the January 14th, 2020 minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Siddiqui.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, poll the committee, please.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, next item on the agenda is the Superintendents Report. Good evening, Dr. Gogan.
Good evening, everyone. How is everyone tonight?
We're pretty good.
Good. I have a lengthy report because it's a very busy time of the year, so bear with me. I would just like to let you know that I attended the Massachusetts Superintendents Midwinter meeting on January 23rd. At that meeting, the commissioner spoke and gave us an update on the Student Opportunity Act. You're going to hear a little bit more about that in our budget presentation, but I'm going to give you a couple highlight overviews and a little bit of good news for us. There are 35 districts that are getting 85% of the money across the state, and all districts are required to submit a plan, even if they don't get any money. The good news for us, we're going to get an estimated, and Monique will give you more details on this, 1.2 million, and we meet the threshold to do the short form. There are templates coming out from the Department of Education to do the Student Opportunity Act plan. The templates have not been sent yet by the Commissioner's office, and the short form is only 2 pages. It's important to note that this is not a strategic plan. This is a very short, itemized plan, but there's a couple must-dos with this plan. And the must-dos involve the school committee and our community. So we must have some sort of community engagement on the plan. I feel pretty good about our FY21 budget and what we're proposing to increase in our budget that's going to align nicely with what we need to do for the Student Opportunity Act. The school committee must vote on this plan prior to me submitting it to the Department of Education in April. So that means that we either have to hold some sort of public hearing in March, when we have 2 meetings in March, March 10th and March 24th, or we can send out the 2-page plan electronically to families and collect feedback that way. So I wanted to see what the school committee's preference was on that. And so you can let me know. And also at this workshop, which is really hard to leave the district, but it was one of the good workshops for superintendents across the state. They had a keynote speaker. His name was Jeff Lawrence, and he spoke to all the superintendents about our jobs, balancing life and our jobs, and thinking systematically and empowering others to be part of your leadership team. So I left feeling very good about what's happening in our district and how we're really working on distributive leadership across the district. I'm going to give you some instructional leadership updates. As you know, we are working with the Department of Education, aka the DSAC team, SSOS team now. We had some learning walks over at Bartlett High School on January 15th. The learning walks did show us some patterns that we will be working on and discussing with not only the administrative team, but the ILTs and the staff as a whole. We will be doing learning walkthroughs on this Friday over at the Webster Middle School. And new for us this year, we're going to include our instructional leadership teams at the middle school, the content leaders. And DESE has arranged for us to have content leaders come and join the SSOS team from DESE. So we'll have some other outside people coming to give us some feedback on some of our instructional practices. These are non-evaluative walkthroughs. They're really helping us calibrate what we need to see for good instructional practices. I'm meeting individually with our school administrative teams and meeting with them as a larger group, but I found that their needs and what we're working on in each of the schools is very different. So these smaller group meetings have given me the opportunity to discuss what we're looking for in walkthroughs, how they're supporting their teachers with lesson planning, and really zoning in on their specific turnaround plans and benchmarks. I'm in the midst of conducting mid-year reviews with all of my administrators, and I am also in the midst of working very hard and long with Webster Middle School staff on the Webster Middle School schedule. Last week, was it last week or this week? I don't even know. We spent 5 hours working on just the special education component to roll out a new schedule. I want to give a shout out to Sherry Hare, our team chair, who has been working diligently with Kathy Barris and myself. And we actually met individually with all of the special education teachers to see how the framework of the schedule that we devised will work for special education. And there's some real positive things that are going to come out of this. I'm not going to get into the detail, but when we roll out the new schedule, I will share it, I promise. I also want to let you know with the Webster Middle School scheduling, I've had several meetings with the union to make sure that they're part of the discussion and collecting feedback and to ensure that open communication. And they are supporting us all the way along. And in having multiple sets of eyes on this has really been helpful. So we still need to review our second language learners schedules, our academic interventionists, and our related service providers, and then put together a new duty schedule, and then look at the communication about the changes well before we change it. Communication to parents, communication to students, and whatnot. Our new assistant principal over at Webster Middle School has been doing some data analysis on our suspension data. She held a meeting that Mrs. Barris and myself and the May Institute attended. This is the first of several meetings to come. We have another meeting coming up to really look at our suspension data, who's being suspended and why, to take a more proactive approach to responding to disciplinary consequences. I'm pleased to let you know that we had a very interesting meeting with some gentlemen who are consultants for helping school districts write innovative pathway grants. And we had this meeting in January. I'm not going to get too much into the detail, but it was very promising. They've worked with some surrounding districts and have helped them obtain grant money and help them with creating very clear pathways to vocational programming at their schools that doesn't interfere with vocational programming at Bay Path. I will say that as we're having these meetings and talking about innovative pathways, we're kind of narrowing our scope, and it seems like at this point in time that advanced manufacturing, biotech, and educational pathways are the three that we may be looking at. We've been busy. We had a PD for our staff on January 21st. I want to give you some high-level highlights. We are still providing ongoing safety care training to keep our people who have safety care certifications current. Our Unified Arts partnered with, across the district, K to 12, all of our Unified Arts teachers spent the day at the Worcester Art Museum. This is a first for our district to put all of our Unified Arts specialists together for a professional development day. I did stop in and saw our Unified Arts teachers working hands-on and creating puppets, which relayed into each of their areas, and the whole day was centered around how to tie the arts in across music to art, to PE, and they had a good time. But it's important that you know our Unified Arts have never been off-site, have never been together, and so they were happy to be collaborating with each other. We also had Berta Elena Rojas come and work with our ELL teachers on the new benchmarking that we are supposed to be doing. We had members from the SSOS team at Bartlett High School, along with Claire Abbott, who's a consultant, to work with Bartlett High School administration and staff on calibrating what good teaching looks like. At the Webster Middle School, we had 2 outside consultants come in. We're, as you know, piloting 2 social studies pilots at the middle school. We had a consultant come in to work with our staff on that, and we had a consultant working with our staff on STEM scopes implementation. They also ran some MCAS review for math and had to beef up MCAS review prior to the tests. And they also did some follow-up work on the optic calibration over at Webster Middle School. I'm not going to talk about Park Ave because I know that Mrs. Parmley is going to. And last, on the Professional Development Day, we are in the process of updating our bully intervention and prevention plan, and our guidance department at the high school started reviewing that plan and making additions. And literally, I have been in this room since 9 o'clock this morning, because at 9 o'clock this morning, I met with our assistant principals and deans across the district to continue the work with Mrs. Barris on the bully intervention and prevention plan. And so we're hoping to get that to you in the next month or so. As you know, I am your representative on 2 boards, 2 collaborative boards. I would like to let you know that the CMC collaborative, our new executive director is doing a great job at looking closer at programming and curriculum needs and how to be very resourceful with the staff that she has. They are just beginning their budget planning, and I would like to let you know that the SWEC collaborative is in the process of hiring a new executive director. I have another meeting this week, and I will keep you apprised on that. Under the realm of community partnerships, I attended a grandparents' meeting in conjunction with Dr. Zielinski over in Oxford, and we met with some grandparents on January 21st to sort of open the lines of communication and the partnership with grandparents' needs. I'm pleased to let you know that I think it was last year, we produced a video with Mafre, Foundation Mafre, and that video has been submitted to the Boston College Center for Corporate Citizenship, and it's open for voting, so only 9 people will be selected for that, so please vote. It is on our website, and if you can go to that and vote, I think you can vote as many times as you want, so I suggest you do. And just as a kind of an outlook for the state of Massachusetts, our governor has proposed a new career and technical initiative. It's not complete yet, but the plan that the governor is proposing is really looking at how to open up vocational schools for other students. So all of the things that we've been talking about, the struggles that we're talking about, under their plan, which is not voted on, they would like to run 3 shifts at a vocational school. The first shift being 9 to 2 for the students who are enrolled in the vocational school, and then from 2 to 5, students are from any high school, and then from 5 to 9 for adult learning. So I personally like that because it opens the doors and pathways for other students. So we'll stay tuned on that. And then finally, in my very lengthy report tonight, I would just like to publicly congratulate Logan. He has reached a milestone of getting 1,000 points in the Bartlett basketball. Congratulations. Thank you. We're very proud of you.
And
That
that's it?
concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Gogan. Any questions or comments from the members? Mrs. Perangeli, do you, or Mr. McCarry, do you guys recall that we need to hold our budget public hearing within so many days of town meeting? Is that in the town charter?
We have it slotted for April 4th.
No, I know that, and I'm just going back to one of your original comments about the need for communicating with community members related to the Student Opportunity Act. Because we had discussed privately potentially combining the two, and I vaguely recall our public hearing had to be held within so many days of the town meeting.
Oh, before the town.
Correct, there's a
Yes.
time frame, like it can't be held.
Yeah.
I don't believe we can combine the two, I guess is what I'm getting to.
No, I don't think so. I have now that you're, but our budget public hearing is
April 14th.
I took you off for out of
I have
order.
the calendar right here. In the big book. So I have it scheduled for you.
Which is, right, which I believe we always did it at that time because it was
Right.
a certain number of days where, okay. Well, we can discuss that.
Plus the act needs to be.
First, so the school committee vote has to happen in March, and the commissioner understands that that doesn't line up with the budgets. And I think that's really why they're making this a much simpler process. There has to be some sort of communication, and it really is left up to the districts on what kind of communication. We could combine a public hearing at one of the March meetings.
Right.
I certainly will send out information in my newsletters. We can post it on the website and collect feedback. They just want to be assured that there's some sort of opportunity for the community to give some feedback.
Had me a little confused there. I'm thinking, we just had a town meeting. What am I missing?
No, I apologize. The annual,
I was in the wrong town meeting.
the annual town meeting.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Goin? Hearing none, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is student update. Logan Peranto. Good evening, Logan.
How are we doing, board?
Good, how are you?
Thank you. All right, I just wanted to start by talking about how the second quarter grades have closed for all grades. Scholarships for seniors have started to be filled out. The soonest deadline is February 1st. Students are settling into their second semester classes, that including gym, health, other art classes, technology classes. A guest speaker named Culture stopped by for an assembly and talked about and emphasized on being your best self. For the school clubs at Bartlett, band has had multiple successful concerts at Bartlett. The show choir has their first competition this Saturday at Shepherd Hill Regional High School. The DECA Club had their district competition at the DCU Center, and 7 students qualified to move on to the state competition in Boston. The Art Club is holding a pottery event in the next couple of weeks. Student Council is holding a kindness week, which is all week during this week. The days including wearing green and white. There was a pajama day, and it's been pretty good so far. The Drama Club held a play called The Crucible and are having another production about a murder mystery coming soon. For athletics, the boys varsity basketball team is standing at a 14-1 record and is qualified for postseason play. The girls varsity basketball team's record is 5-9, has been very competitive in all their games. The boys track team has 6 wins and 3 losses, with the wins coming over Millbury, Southbridge, Oxford, Leicester, David Prouty, and Tintasqua. The girls track team has 5 wins and 5 losses, with the wins coming over Leicester, Notre Dame, Oxford, Southbridge, and David Prouty. And lastly, I would like to talk about NHS. NHS competed in the Honor Bowl against Grafton, Leicester, and Quabog. The Honor Bowl being a comparison to a academic decathlon. And lastly, the grand opening of the Trading Post in Bartlett was today. The Trading Post being where any student or any faculty can go in and grab any clothes that they want or need. That's all. Any questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
I do have a question. Logan, did you get, how's your college application process going? I thought I read something that
I did get
might
accepted.
require another congratulations.
I got accepted into West New England University with getting a $19,000 merit scholarship. Start off.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Have you made a decision? You don't have to announce it publicly. That's not fair, but
No, not yet. I'm leaving it open for right now.
good.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nice job.
You can't go yet. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the Trading Post, did it get renovated?
Yes, I got renovated. Mopfrey Insurance helped us out a little bit with bringing in new racks and renovating our changing room.
I think they're collecting some clothes, some new clothes.
Yeah,
for
they
it.
are too.
Yeah.
They are.
Good.
Well, good luck with, first and foremost, the second half of your senior year academics, because those are really important.
Thank you.
And then good luck with the rest of the season. I'm guessing most likely Clark and
Yep.
postseason, so good luck.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you, Logan.
Continuing on with the agenda, next item is the business manager report. Monique Perangeli, good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. First item is our school building update. Not a heck of a lot going on. I canceled our February meeting. We are in a waiting cycle right now. I'm waiting for the MSBA to send us our enrollment agreement that we need to review and sign. They'll also be sending us a feasibility agreement that we'll have to review and sign. But until we get that, we are in status hold. So I think they're a little bit behind, just catching up with some other districts, trying to get them on the February board meeting, and they told us that we will be looking at April. So as soon as I get the information and have more news, I will be sending out an email to the building committee to schedule another meeting for them to review the information. Next item on the agenda is our FY20 quarter 2 update. So in your packets, you should have received a quarter 2 update. We are in the top right-hand corner. You see I wrote where we are with salaries through the year. We are about 38.5% through for teachers, and weekly should be at about 55.7. So the budget's looking good. I don't see too much in there. I'd be happy to go through it or answer any questions. I have made transfers. You'll see in the transfer adjustment line, I have the ability to move from salary to salary or supply to supply. So we reviewed our up-to-date salaries and made accommodations where necessary. We've also moved some money into sublines from salary to salary to accommodate for the areas that we have long-term subs to take care of those deficits. There are a couple areas that, I have deficits that I have to look, nothing major, small areas. I know one is copiers at Park Ave, the lease, I gotta look at that. I have a feeling some things might have gotten misposted. The billing is a little tricky now. We used to have a single bill for every copier. Now, when you lease, they put 20 things on one bill, so you're trying to decipher and break it out. So I just have a feeling that's a data entry fix. Special ed, we have been maintaining. Not a heck of a lot is going on there as far as tuitions coming in. I should knock on something really quick.
Yeah, really, because Mrs. Barris is going to curse you in the morning.
I know. I hope I didn't just put the jinx on myself, but we are watching contracted services, and you will see that you have a transfer for later on in the meeting because we are contracting out some of our services. And for speech and language, we have a long-term maternity and a speech assistant position that wasn't filled. So those salaries were budgeted, and those will be going into contracted service to help pay for that. So other than that, the budget seems to be in good shape. So unless you have any questions.
I just have a quick question. So roughly 39% of the teachers' salaries have been accrued, or that might not be, what's the right accounting word?
Right. No, that's.
But we're at 50% of the budget. You feel good about that? That was my only concern.
Yes, because the teachers are always a little less because they get the lump sum.
No, I understand that, but 50%, we've utilized 50% of the operating budget.
Right.
But we've only spent 39% of the teacher's salary.
Correct.
Do you feel okay with that?
I do.
Okay.
I do feel okay with that. Some of the encumbrance money will come off, and you have to remember, I haven't made the adjustment yet for circuit breaker. That usually waits till the end of the year, which is a large chunk of money also. So I'm comfortable with that one.
Any other questions or comments from Mrs. Perangeli? Hearing none, yes.
Just before we move on, I just noticed that in the book is the collaborative annual report that I forgot to mention. So I just, for the record, I'm sharing the Worcester collaborative report.
And I think I know the answer to this question.
You don't have to vote on it.
No, but in the opening letter, there's one executive director. In the list of governance, there's another executive director. Is that because it's discussing 2018, 2019, so they listed the former? So there's no other questions or comments for Mrs. Perangeli or Dr. Gogan again. Moving on with the agenda, next item is the principal report. Robin Parmley, Park Avenue Elementary School. Good evening, Mrs. Parmley.
Good evening. How is everybody this morning?
this morning.
There we go. You can tell how I'm doing. Oh, well, we're great over here on this. So we've been very busy over at Park Avenue. We just had our concert, Peace for Kids. And I got to tell you, our second graders just rocked it. They did an amazing job. It was very inspiring based on the life and message of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They also shared their songs at our most recent Polar Plunge and had, I don't believe there was a dry eye in the place as they stood and sang a couple of their songs. I told staff, if you don't have goosebumps after this, you're not breathing. So they really have exemplified the message of peace and courage and leadership, which went beautifully with our character trait of resilience and what that means and looks like at their level. So a tremendous turnout, of course, and kudos to Valerie Howes and to all of the grade 2 staff who had students ready to sing for that evening, that morning. All right. We also had our grade level collaboration for PD Day. So we had a full day, and I did include this in your packet. And when I talked to the directors, we decided that listening to staff feedbacks, teachers really wanted time to just really collaborate and to do the work at hand. And so what I did is I framed the day, as you'll see, with our learning target for the day. And they had rotations, 3 different rotations throughout the day. And at the end of the day, they needed to have finished products so that there wasn't accountability. But I got to tell you, there was so much excitement in the room, and the feedback, we did do a survey from teachers, was so positive. They were like so appreciative to be able to have the time to have those professional discussions and really look at the curriculum, design exit tickets to make the lesson planning very powerful, meaningful, and purposeful. And so I feel like it was a really positive day and that they came away with a lot that they could put into motion immediately, and they felt like it was very valuable. And then the last thing on my list, we just had our Me and Someone special dance put on by our amazing PTO. It was the biggest turnout we've had. We had over 250 folks at each session. We raised over 1,500 just at our bake sale. And I have to give such a shout out because most of everything there was baked by our own staff. And I have to tell you, Miss Amanda Anderson, if she ever needed a sideline business, she could open up her own bakery. It was amazing. We also, if you could have been in there, if you could have seen the daddies dancing with their little girls, it was very precious. And of course, the little boys, they came all decked out with their little bow ties, and the little girls with their dresses. So just a wonderful family event. So that's my report.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the committee for Mrs. Parmley?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a
Mrs.
quick
Siddiqui.
question. Can you explain what the exit tickets mean?
Sure. So an exit ticket is a very quick way for a teacher to know, did the student understand the lesson that just took place? And it gives what we call a formative assessment. So it's a very, it could be a half a page, it can be a verbal response, but it's some type of performance task that the student does immediately after. And the teacher's able to look at that and say, okay, so taking a look at where my students landed, what do I need to do tomorrow in order to, for the ones who struggled, how do I close that gap? For the ones who've got it, then where do I stretch them the next time?
Right,
So,
that makes sense.
yeah.
And just one more thing.
Yes.
I was at the Me and Someone special dance on Saturday with my husband and both of my kids. Because now my youngest is in kindergarten. And I just have to say, it's so neat for the kids to see the members of the administrative team and the teachers. And so many people are giving up their Saturday with their own family to be with the families of the kids that they spend, Monday through Friday with. So kudos to the team. The bake sale was awesome as usual, but there were so many staff members there.
So many.
And the kids are so excited to see their teachers in a different, it's the same environment, right? But it's a whole different atmosphere.
It was so fun.
really great.
I was trying to remember how to do the electric slide, which was not pretty. I can just tell you that right now. But all the little kids, they come over and we're dancing. It was just amazing. It's such a fun evening, a great fundraiser.
The only question I have is, do we happen to have any video of Mrs. Siddiqui dancing?
We could.
Maybe.
That could be posted perhaps on the website. I was actually thinking the same thing about the exit ticket, so thank you for asking. That's something I've never heard, and
Oh,
the
I'll,
years.
I'll bring you some examples next time.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you. Next item on the agenda under old business is Food Services Audit Report Update. Ellen Nyland, Food Services Director. Good evening, Chef Nyland.
Good evening, everybody. I am not coming with the fun stuff tonight.
Uh-oh.
No. So the food service department had an administrative review the week before Christmas break at the middle school. So if you're not familiar with how the food service admin review works, it used to be every 3 years. It's now every 4 years and going to every 5 years. That was part of all this USDA stuff that was released a couple of weeks ago. You may have heard some stuff about rollbacks and that kind of thing. So, which means that, out of 3 schools, 1 school in your district, it's like every 12 years, basically. So it's a very comprehensive review when it does happen. There's a review week that they request in the review month and upload like 8 zillion documents. And then there's an observation week when they're here for 3 days. So, and in addition, this year, we have a procurement review, which is scheduled. The districts that are getting admin reviews currently are also getting procurement reviews. So before we have finished the corrective action plan on the admin review, we have started the procurement review as of today.
Yes,
Right?
that's new. That's been out. They just came out with that a couple years ago, and they're just really starting to go through the districts. So it's got everybody in a little bit of an upheaval because it's something new and different. And hopefully this time they're just going through looking at guidance and looking at what we're doing and making suggestions on how we can do it better or what we need to change. But we've just tapped the surface. I've already heard from a couple other business managers who are going through it and said, let me call you when we're done. So I said, okay. But it's gonna be a little bit of a process. But I always welcome audits because it's a great learning tool. I mean, that's what makes us better. And it doesn't always necessarily mean what they're telling you to do is always the way you have to do it or the right way to do it. But it really can be an eye-opening to how you are processing things in your organization. So I welcome them. It's always good to have another set of eyes. You can never have too many sets looking at something and talking back and forth about procedure and policy and what you're doing well and what you need to work on. It's helpful.
I tried arguing that we shouldn't have them simultaneously, but I lost. Desi won. So,
Dr. Gobin's world, right?
yeah, we were talking about that. So the corrective action plan is is due Friday, so I'm still working on that. So once that is completed, I think we will provide a copy of that. Is that correct?
Sure, yep.
Right? So, but I just want to run through, it is very comprehensive, so I'm going to read from my notes if you don't mind. I'm going to run through the areas that they cover and just highlight where we did have some findings. Revenue from non-program foods, which tells us, are we charging enough for, specifically for our vended meals to Head Start and then also for the catering that we do, basically. At the middle school, the snack program, and that's about, are we counting the meals correctly and is the meal pattern correct? Certificate and benefit issuance, which is really concerning All Saints because that is concerned with the schools where we still take applications, which obviously is not at our 3 schools, but only at All Saints. And that is, again, concerned with meal counting and how we identify the eligibility categories and how we do that whole beginning of the year process that we used to do here and we don't do anymore. There's some financial stuff, maintenance of nonprofit school food service account, which Mrs. Perangeli is working on, food safety, meal counting and claiming is the most complex, and that's where we got the most findings, and most of those were from breakfast in the classroom, which we expected. Breakfast in the classroom has never been reviewed in the district. This was the first time, and it is significantly different from, the other meal service because it is in the classroom. So that presents all kinds of challenges with meal counting. It's a lot on teachers to add to their day. So not only the counting of the reimbursable meals, but also the meal pattern and what makes a reimbursable meal and what do the students, what are they required to take in order for us to count it as a reimbursable meal. So that's really what we expected to have some findings on, and we did, and it is really helping us flesh out how breakfast in the classroom should run, not only at the middle school, but also at Park Ave and the kind of hybrid model that we're running at the high school now. Meal components and quantities, that's about, are we meeting the meal pattern, which changes, and these guidelines that were issued 2 weeks ago are proposing some significant changes, so that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And again, those findings, the findings that we have on those are primarily from breakfast in the classroom, which, again, we expected. Monitoring, are we doing all our monitoring on time? Our paid lunch equity, are we charging enough for the meals that we do charge for, which in our case is, again, only All Saints and any second meals, which are negligible in the district. Professional standards, reporting and record keeping, verification process, and that's the list. So, it's nothing, it's no big deal. It is extremely comprehensive. It is the nitty gritty of the federal regulations. I mean, it is really down to, just to give you one example, the school apple that everyone uses, and we call it a school apple. It's a small apple, 198 count, which means 198 fits in a case. Well, per the DESI review, that apple does not actually meet the requirement for the piece of fruit that we serve at breakfast. So that's the level of detail that these food service
But everybody
reviews
uses
involve.
it.
That everybody uses, exactly.
This is an actual apple. This is not like a.
No, an
This is
apple.
An actual apple.
Yeah, it's a
This is
real
an
apple.
actual
It doesn't
apple.
count to
It
what the
doesn't-
DESI
not big
qualifies as
enough.
an apple.
No, this is an actual apple. So it's some of it is mind-boggling, but that's I guess that's the reality of dealing with federal programs and regulations.
Yep, I think one day we didn't have beans, right?
Oh,
Is that a whole?
not only are there vegetables, there are vegetable subgroups that not only, they don't have, some things have a daily minimum, some things have a weekly minimum. And if you don't meet a subgroup by, I believe, one subgroup, I'm not making this up, which is red orange vegetable, we're supposed to have a 3/4 minimum a week, we only had a half a cup. So we were shy by a 1/4 of a cup on that subgroup of a vegetable, so that's a finding. So that's the level of detail of these administrative reviews.
On a positive note.
Yeah, please.
On a positive note,
Please.
audits do bring us the opportunity to take a look at our practices. And actually, when we are conversing amongst ourselves about the processes and procedures, when an audit comes in, it forces us to bring that level of information down into the building.
It is
So on a positive note, the breakfast in the classroom is a wonderful program that we have here now for all 3 schools. What we just learned was how to implement it better,
True.
more effectively, more efficiently, and not we, everybody, the
Right.
teachers who are responsible for doing that.
Right.
So there are always positives that come from audits. They are cumbersome. They're never going to go away. But we are in an ongoing process of improving.
Absolutely.
And with that, that concludes my presentation on the audit.
Well, I hope Dr. Gogan puts it in your review that the apples did not qualify.
I don't do a review.
Well, they obviously didn't try the cheesy chili nachos because you would have passed. My kids
Obviously.
look forward to that
Obviously.
every time.
Obviously.
Or homemade
other-
chicken.
No. Or our homemade chicken pot pie.
Right.
No, those
Right.
things, I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
Those things are not
Our cafeteria staff do a great job.
evaluated.
We go above and beyond in our
Yeah.
district, and unfortunately, the audits don't look at those extra special things that we do. But we know what goes on here on a day-to-day basis, and we are very lucky to have the staff that we have working as hard as they are to provide our kids with healthy food.
We are.
So kudos.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Nyland? Again, thank you. Next item on the agenda is FY21 budget update.
All right.
Okay.
Well, in front of you, you have the book. The book. So I will just quickly walk through what's in the book, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Gogan to say a few words. The first is our calendar, right on top.
Oh, dear.
The second tab, presentations, the first tab actually, has all the presentations, tonight's presentations and the previous one that we had. So you'll see that they're clipped, so if you want to follow through on paper. The third tab has our FY21 budget that you saw at the last meeting. The fourth tab is capital improvement, which you don't have yet. You will have that at the next meeting. She's just modeling our nice covers.
Oh, I thought you
For the
found a
camera.
spelling.
For the camera. She's having a Vanna moment. And then after that, we have our foundation budget information. I don't have any town budget information yet. Under mass budget and policy, I have the act that was just passed in November for some good Saturday reading. I put a couple articles in there that I saw online in regards to funding that's coming out and potential a budget gap. And then the last is our FY20 budget with the updated revenue that was done in October meeting. So as we move forward through the budget season, please feel free to take notes, write notes, scribble away on it, and as things come up, we will always be passing them out to add into your budget binders for your keeping and review. Okay? Dr. Godin? it's
We
all-
guarantee that this binder will be no more than 3 pounds by the end of budget season. We presented our budget to you at the last meeting, and we have some follow-up information on special education that we would like to present. As I said previous, I feel very confident in the budget that we presented you and that it's going to align with meeting our students' needs and continuing the growth that we are showing. So without further ado, I'd like to pass this to our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Kathleen Barris.
Thank you. So these are updated slides regarding what we're requesting for additional special education staff, for teaching staff specifically. And last time there were some questions regarding the current and projected caseload numbers. So I just wanted to walk through that. And I did do some further analysis so that I could kind of help make it a little bit more understandable, I hope. So at Park Avenue, there are no changes for our pre-K program. We believe that we will be able to support our students entering that program because we do have a capacity of 15 students per session in all of our integrated preschool sessions. And then we do have one separate program. So I think we're really on target there. So the next slide would be the substantially separate programs. And again, I think our ABA numbers are a little bit high, but this year it increased significantly because we had actually 4 move-in students over the summer, which is really big for us in that particular program. But I think we will be okay with that number at this point. We do have a lot of support staff in that program, a lot of one-to-one ABA support. And, I think that, what we're projecting for next year will stay steady. So for KN1, we had requested an additional staff person, and that's based on kind of an analysis of caseloads as well as really looking at overall student performance in grades K through 4. We really took a look at student achievement and where we needed to kind of, bridge the gap for our students in our subgroups. So the additional staff person who will cover both K and 1, kind of share caseload, will bring the caseloads within a more reasonable range. And we provided kind of an average for elementary schools of neighboring districts, just to kind of use a benchmark. So I think those numbers are fairly accurate as far as, at this point in time, what we know. For grade 2, students will be moving up from grade 1, so that caseload should be about 10 to 12 students. For grade 3, our current students are 19 students, and with the addition of a second teacher who will also help to service grade 4, the caseloads for grade 3 and grade 4 will be brought into a better alignment with our ability to provide the direct services. Okay. All right, so at Webster Middle School, I think we're, again, in pretty good shape. No changes recommended for our substantially separate programs. We have 3 there, the ABA program, Life Skills, and our STAR program, which services students with social and emotional needs. And those programs, at this point in time, look very steady, and we don't anticipate any significant changes. So here's where I think some of the questions came into play. When we look at students in grades 5 through 8, and I did an initial analysis of caseloads where the inclusion teachers have a variety of duties in relation to the students in the grade level. So what I did was I went in and analyzed every student's IEP in terms of the service delivery to really get a sense of, are they really just looking at those students from a consultative perspective? Are they providing direct service? Are they providing just inclusion support that's shared with an IA for that grade level? And what I found is that for all of the grade levels, the direct service average really fell between like 15 and 18 students per inclusion specialist. So although someone might have 24 or 30 students on their caseload, when you broke it down, there were students in that classroom that might just have related services, such as maybe behavioral support. So they might be supported either with an ABA staff or maybe an IA for if they had like a physical disability or some kind of medical condition. So those students would just have oversight or consultation with the grade level specialist. So they would add them to their caseloads so that they would, just kind of know to track those students. Or if consult was on the IEP, they'd be able to provide that support for the student. So we looked at the incoming grade 4, again, 22 students, but when you looked at the average, there were about 14 students that will be coming up and getting direct service. In grade 6, it's the students from grade 5 that will be moving over. That is the higher number of students, but again, the average range for that particular grade fell like 18 to 20 students we anticipate with direct service. The other thing in terms of the scheduling that we discussed is that with changing the schedule or looking at potential changes to the schedule, we also looked at how the resource room teacher, because the numbers are very low with those, so either through combining like for like a grade 5-6 resource room class versus just a grade 5 or just a grade 6, we may be able to utilize the resource room teachers for inclusion or for those students that don't get a lot of direct service from the grade level teachers. So we'd be able to spread out those caseloads a little bit more. So we think that there's going to be a little bit of room in the scheduling for us to do that. And then also, bring that caseload down a little bit for the inclusion teacher. So again, for grade 7, we anticipate about 18 students for the inclusion teacher. And the students coming up from grade 7. There's a few, when you see that range, it means that we may have a few that are kind of in the process of, determining eligibility and so forth, or we've just gotten some move-ins that we're unsure of the placement at this point. But projecting what will be on that caseload again, that may look a little bit high, but it's, the range remains within that 15 to 18 students for direct. And likewise, for the 7th and 8th grade, combining the resource room schedules, we may be able to free up some time to provide support for the grade levels that have a higher classroom. What I have found is that year to year, you always have a particular grade level. It just seems to me, I don't know, can talk to some other directors, but we seem to have just certain years where we have a really large number of students in a specific grade level. And that's happened this year, like in our grade 5. So it's not always true, as you can see. Some of the caseloads are a little bit less than that. So I didn't know if, oh, sorry, the Bartlett High School, we didn't make any changes. Our numbers do seem to really align with what the average caseloads are in our neighboring districts, and we didn't see any need for additional support at this point. This is just the statistics that were presented. At this time, we have 447 active students. We have now, since I think the original special education presentation, our total number of referrals, I just checked them tonight because I was doing some data, looking at data. We have about 86 students currently in our having an initial evaluation, so quite the jump in the last month. And the students by disabilities, just to give you a sense of, kind of where our numbers fall, with communication being the highest area of disability and autism being the second highest. So after reviewing the individual needs of students in our special education programs, we continue to recommend additional two teachers at Park Avenue Elementary School. And after an analysis of all of the data available, the Webster Middle School will not need additional staff at this time, as the direct service requirements are able to be met with the total number of 6 FTE special education teachers between the inclusion and resource rooms being able to support the students that we have as active students at the middle school. Do you have any questions?
Yes.
This is very helpful, so thank you for putting the time into explaining this all to us a little bit differently. And the visuals are really helpful too. My question has to do with, when we look at the current caseload, for example, in kindergarten and first grade at Park Avenue, does that feed the projected caseload for second grade?
So that the
the
KN1, yeah, the KN1 is combined, so it's a total of 28.
Oh, I see.
But in grade 1, there's only,
Right.
10
Right,
active
they
students at this
separate.
point. And in these numbers, again, we have to kind of take it into, our highest number of students who are referred for special education are at the elementary level.
Right.
So those numbers fluctuate. So you oftentimes do see kind of lower numbers at the beginning of the year, and then as the year progresses, they will increase slightly, so.
And with the number of referrals being up by 20 about from last year, do we have any idea what grades those kids are in and what that's going to look like?
So the number of referrals that jumped from this presentation to my last presentation was for this current year. So we have about 86 students that are in the initial referral process right now. I think our total number of referrals last year was 124. And so we were a little bit on track. It just seemed like we just had a big bump. So we'll keep an eye on it, but it wouldn't surprise me if we exceeded last year's total by a little bit. And the number of referrals that we do get many of them from early childhood, early intervention, like our early childhood ETL. She has the highest number of referrals, so she does the most initial evals. And a lot of those students are students who just get related services. They may not qualify necessarily for the integrated preschool program, but would need like maybe speech or OT. Some of those students will qualify for our integrated preschool program, and they stay with us for a couple of years in that program because of their age. So they're not age eligible for kindergarten until 5. So we do keep an eye on it. I don't get too alarmed with that number because it's not atypical for the early childhood referrals to be high. The elementary referrals at this point, K through 3, we've had year to date about 30 referrals. And, statistically, we have, probably a good, like 40% are not eligible, and, 40 to 50% sometimes. So again, it's not too alarming. So the numbers that are referred, we take into consideration all of those factors. Some are not eligible, some are eligible only for related services. Okay.
I have a question. So in the budget, under special education for each of the schools, there's a higher number of teachers listed than what's in the presentation. Is that accounting for related service providers, school psychologists, team chairs?
Correct. Not team, yeah, it may have team chairs. Like I know Park Ave, if you look at special ed teachers, I can tell you.
ETLs are under there.
Yes, I can tell you the
At the
team
what
chair
number?
is in there, the speech teachers are in there.
53.
Not just inclusion teachers, you have inclusion, speech.
Right, okay.
Team chair, anybody that's specific to special ed at Park Ave.
Okay.
And it's by school that way.
Any other questions or comments from Mrs. Barris? Hearing none, thank you.
Okay, so next we're gonna jump into chapter 70. I'm gonna do my best, I can't make any promises, to walk us through some highlights from the new act that was implemented in November, and go through some foundation budget information from the town side. I'm not doing an in-depth Chapter 70 presentation as
Yes,
far
you
as, not that in-depth. Because we walked through that years ago, how the foundation is created, but I will highlight some fields that I think are important to know. So, as you know, on Wednesday, January 23rd, last week, the governor released his budget for FY '21, which represents a $303.5 million or 5.9% funding from $5.1 billion to $5.4 billion for FY '21. The FY '21 Chapter 70 program reflects the passage of the November 2019 an act relative to educational opportunities for students. We're calling it the Student Opportunity Act. This act made significant changes to Chapter 70 based on recommendations by the Foundation Budget Review Commission. So it's been a long time since Chapter 70 formula was looked at, and the commission worked really hard, and there was a lot of push around the state as to updating the Chapter 70 foundation budget. In this act, or in Chapter 70, there were 5 key areas that they were looking at: benefits and fixed charges, guidance and psychological services, special education out-of-district tuition, English learners, and low income. The Act for '21 includes rate changes above inflation towards the goals in these 5 areas. So typically you have your inflation rate, that changes some of that, and then they've increased the rates on top of that inflation. That's what they're saying. So for proposed rate increases for benefit and fixed charges, guidance and psychological services, and special education out of district and EL learners, they did 1/7 of the gap This act is supposed to be implemented over the next 7 years. So they did 1/7. The proposed low income rate closes 4/100th of the gap. So this is the area where people are most concerned about, because this is where we see a lot of our increase in our funding. So anybody who has a high, low income, we're a bit disappointed with this percentage increase, because that's where we're predominantly going to get the increase in our budget. If you take a look at the benefits and fixed charges, they talked about changing, and they did. The new employee benefits inflation rate was applied. So they looked at the GIC, the state GIC plan, and they took the average premium increase for all plans, and that is 2.34. So that was the rate that they used to change that. All of the other foundation budget rates were at 1.99%. That was applied. They got that from the U.S. Department of Commerce, State and Local Government. That's what they used there. They also added a new minimum aid adjustment to the formula. This provides a hold harmless, because there were 25 districts who would have lost aid because of the new formula. So they were held harmless. They put in a set amount that they would get and not lose any funding, Chapter 70 funding. For special education, the goal over this plan is to increase our in-district special education enrollment from 4.75, which it currently was in FY20, to 5% for vocational students, and 3.75% to 4% for non-vocational students. So they could be special ed voc students or special ed regular students. They're changing the rate. This is being phased in over the 7 years. So that rate for this year was calculated at 3.82 and 4.82 for vocational. This is taking a look at just our low-income tiers. So what they've done here is they've actually, and I should have put a slide in from last year, but basically they had 10 steps of low income that you could get. We were in the highest percentile. They call them percentiles or tiers, 1 through 10. We were in the top tier before. We averaged about, I think it was 4,500 and some change per student in low income. That was the rate there. If you look now, what they've done is they've kind of spread the wealth. They've increased additional tiers. So now it's 1 through 12. We are in low income tier 10, so we're no longer at the top. We do see an increase. It's not a very good slide, I'm sorry. It's 4,700, so we saw a couple hundred increase in slide, but that is our percentage. We are at 63.18 in special education. In low income. And how they derive that low income is they take a look at our students through the direct certification process, which we do. We're CEP, and we process our students through there. It receives any students or families who receive benefits through any of state or federal programs, the SNAP, Medicaid, any of those programs. They're flagged and they become direct cert. Or they take a look at the district's FY16 low income percentage and they multiply it by the current foundation enrollment. So if you look down the bottom, that's where Webster stood. Our estimated low income based on FY16 was 1,142. Our FY21 from direct certification is at 1,165. So they used the higher of the number. So that's what our number is based on for low income. What are those things kind of boil down for us? That's me. Trying to sift through all of that. That was me the last few days. Trying to just decipher out from when the numbers came out, we didn't get them till Wednesday afternoon, to try and put something and just try and get a real understanding of it also, because it's new. And there's not a lot out there yet. You'd think that we know this was coming for a long time, but the chatter's been on the listserv, well, can't you just give us an easy comparison to what it means from FY20? And the real answer to that is no. That's what we've been finding anyways. So for Webster, that increase in Chapter 78 is 1.128, $1,128,407 in Chapter 78. or an 8.23% increase over last year's, over FY20. So good increase, yeah, but is it what I hoped for? No, it's not. So as we look at our.
The good news is we have to do the short form now.
Yes, that is the good news. The good news. But I would have been okay with the long form. So there are 6 factors that work together to determine Chapter 70. The foundation budget, which we know, and then the local contribution, that's the town side. It looks at property value, income, and municipal growth. This chart is an overview of our Chapter 70 summary from the state. As you can see, they take a look at our prior Chapter 70. They come out with the foundation, which you'll see in other slides moving forward. And it comes up with an increase over. The minimum aid, the $66.90, is the $30 per pupil increase. So if they take the $30 times, which your foundation enrollment is, to come up with this number. This number is the number that was driving me crazy. I was trying for the life of me to figure out where it came from, and I couldn't. So I finally got on the phone to talk to the Department of Ed to say, what am I missing? I've been looking at numbers for a while. Can you please walk me through how you got to this number? And they said, no. That was the answer I got. Basically, they said it was too much to put in another sheet out there. The formula, it was complex at how they figured out. But they said, ultimately, this would have been doing nothing. So if we didn't change through the act, the way the foundation is being set, with the way Chapter 70 is being set, they're saying this number is probably what your Chapter 70 would have looked at. So, you know, right off the top, you're only looking at a $200,000 increase from where it would have been. That's what they were estimating. So I thought that was pretty enlightening to see it that way. This is the town side. Remember I said it takes some property value, income, and they look at the municipal growth factor. This is what walks us through what the effort is going to be on the town side, our local contribution. That local contribution is broken up through the schools in Webster. Webster participates in Bay Path, our regional, so that's where that comes into play. They look at the enrollment from FY20 and FY21, and they break down the percentages, and they break that minimum contribution, or that required contribution, I should say, between Webster and Southern Worcester County. So the FY20 local required contribution is $11,500 and $51,971. This is a sheet I've done up. So again, it's a little difficult to see, but it's in your packet. But if you want to take a look at the right column, this is what we've updated. So the top walks you through the Chapter 70, the foundation budget, the minimum contribution that was decided through the town numbers, how much aid we're getting in Chapter 70 to come up with our required net school spending. Then we take a look at your required town services, your Schedule 19 services. The best way I can describe these is almost as like a tax write-off. These are things the town gets to deduct off of the total net contribution. So those things are the money that goes to to charter schools and to school choice that we pay out. Town services that they provide for us in the accounting office, maybe in the treasurer's office for services they provide. Operating and maintenance, that's plowing throughout the district from the town. Our employee health insurance, our retirement contributions, other insurances, which could be like workers' comp or any kind of insurances like that, to come up with a total. That total is $6.369,473, so $6,369,473. You take that total and you can subtract it off of the town's minimum, that 11.5. So that 5,000 that you have, 5 million that you have there is what the town is required to give us. If you take that 5 million and add it to the Chapter 70 money that we're getting, our minimum budget would be 20,024,000, which is significantly less than our net school spending, what we're required to hit. As you can see, that the town, if we get our required budget or the budget that we're seeking for right now, the 22,633, we would be 2.6 million over our required contribution. Last year, we were 3.5. So you can see how the changes in the formula have really changed kind of where we stand as a town. How are we doing so far? Are we okay?
I
Good?
think everybody's choking on.
I know. It's fun material.
What do the negatives mean, all the way to the right on the bottom?
So
It looks
it's
like that's the
less,
increase
we're
we did.
receiving less from prior years. So if you look, our contribution has gone down, and why is that thing keep showing up there? So if you look, in the previous year, we were 3.5 million above the town contribution.
Okay,
Because of the
great.
changes, we're at 2.6 now,
Okay,
so we've almost dropped a million.
yep.
I mean, we're still in decent shape, but we don't want to see that go down. We want to continue to grow. And that's what the increase in Chapter 70 was supposed to be doing for us. So I thought it was interesting to go back and take a look at the history of Chapter 70 from FY15. And this year, we were at 8.23. Last year, we saw a big jump in FY20, 7.9. But then it's been it's kind of bounced around all over the place. We had another big year in FY17. I was trying to think of what happened in that year.
A lot of
Enrollment.
that's enrollment. It was
So-
fluctuating. You have a
It's a
negative
big-
enrollment even by a small amount,
Mm-hmm.
and that will significantly impact
So
year to year negative.
those are some big jumps, though, going from 8.4. I should have put the enrollments up for those years, and I didn't.
No, we were very fortunate because on the town side, our increase overall has been somewhat
Correct.
steady, so the town was able to make up.
Support us. Absolutely. Oh, there was something else that I wanted to point out, and I think I skipped right by it. Okay, this is a first also. If you notice in the bottom right-hand side of this town contribution, this is the first time that I've noticed, I went back to 15, that we were actually below the target share. So you know how the state comes out and they say, they want the communities to each hit their local share, a target benchmark? The changes in the Chapter 70 formula and looking through the growth and everything of our net school, this is the first time I've noticed we're actually below the target share by 1%, which I found interesting. It hasn't impacted our preliminary contribution, so our required local contribution, I should say, it hasn't impacted that. But I think it's something worth keeping an eye on, because the whole point of this is supposed to be hitting your marks. If everybody's hitting your mark, then everybody's putting in their share. No other districts picking up the share for somebody else. So that's something you want to see pretty even. You don't want to see it going down. But overall, I was hoping for more. I don't want to be greedy, but that low-income number was a little disappointing for me. I understand there's only so much money to go around, and it is early in the process. This is the initial phase. We still have a couple more, 2, 3 more to go through, so, hopefully those numbers will change for the positive for us in a good way moving forward.
So as of right now, and again, I know we're very early, based on your original budget plus the governor's Chapter 70, we're going to be looking for a little over $1 million from the town.
Yes.
That's the bottom line as of right now. That I can
Overall, yes.
correct.
Yep, our budget increase was 1 point,
I thought it was 2.186.
I don't have it. Oh, it's right here, actually.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the right number. So I have 2,186,859.
correct.
Minus the
Yep.
1,128,407.
I had a number written here, was the wrong number. Yep, that is correct. So right now, we receive, no, I'm sorry, Dave. That 2.1, that's other funds that you're looking at right there.
Okay.
That is other funds. So really, over last year, we're looking at, if you go straight down in the budget, the increase was 817,000.
See, that's where I got lost on this. Where is that figure?
So go down, so.
Oh, here it
you
is.
see
It's
it?
hidden. It's, okay. I get it.
So we're asking for less than we're receiving in Chapter 70,
Right. Okay. As of right now.
as of right now.
Any other questions or comments from the members? So obviously, as the members may remember, the governor comes out with his initial budget, then we will get a House estimate, and usually the Senate estimate is very close to town meeting.
Usually, yep.
And usually the town administrator will take a look at governor's budget, what was the House, what's the inside scoop on early negotiations to come up with a Chapter 70 estimate for town meeting.
Yeah, that's our next step. Dr. Gogan and I need to set up a meeting with the town administrator and the town accountant, just to review what their budget is looking like to this point, and what we're doing moving forward, what his projections for the town side are, so we can really start to target in and hone in on some budget numbers.
Any sense what that level service number would look like?
Yes, a level service,
Did I miss it?
it was, did I not include that in the?
I might
It
have
was
missed it.
22,068,479, and it should have been, that was in the packet.
I apologize if I missed
It's not in your budget book, but I think it was in the school committee packet that went out.
it. So do you know,
That was 1.16%.
okay.
what
Versus,
you're looking for?
yeah, versus 3.75. That's
Yep.
all I want, okay.
Yep,
So in essence, it's a 2.6% increase
yes,
in quote-unquote new.
right.
Okay.
And just in a summary, I just would like to say that our budget presentation is on our website for any of people who would like to see it, and it's underneath in the business department. And our budget really focuses on early intervention at Park Avenue, kind of closing the gap at the middle school, and creating more pathways for kids at the high school. The number of staff that we are propose to increase really do line up with the Student Opportunity Act. So I really think that things are coming together for us in a very nice, orderly fashion.
And I apologize if I was jumping around a little bit
did a
through
great
the
job.
presentation, but I am looking forward to really digging in even deeper and really getting to fully understand the background behind the foundation budget. So I look forward to the changes.
So I know it's early, but let's assume the numbers stay roughly where they are. You're requesting an additional increase less than even the Chapter 70 funding. Would you be considering not using the school choice funds potentially?
We could, moving forward. I
Well,
mean,
because right now you're requesting the $870-something thousand increase.
Mhm.
And the Chapter 70 governor's budget is increasing by, what was it, 1.1 million?
1.1.
I know that $875,000 increase included money from school choice.
Correct.
So it's either look for additional staff and programs to add, or potentially not use that money.
As we go through it, we can
Yeah, we can
consider
work
that.
through that as we go through. I know it hasn't been looked at favorably to let that money sit there.
Yes.
So, I mean, you shouldn't just, it's not a pot to just keep building up and not use. I mean, even the state wants you to use the money, you
Okay.
know? So,
And the town has
Yeah.
questioned us on it.
yep. So just looking at it, I think it's something definitely to keep in mind. I mean, it's certainly been a go-to for us in the past when we've needed it, and it's
Right.
carried us through some harder times when we were able to use that money and not lose staffing and not, and keep the momentum going and trying to build.
I know it seems like a very large dollar amount, but obviously when you're dealing with a plus $20 million budget, that's really not a large reserve fund,
It's not.
so.
And we're using it for what we said we were gonna use it for the most part. We said we wanted to use that for technology. So we've been doing a lot of technology upgrades, with the recycling of equipment and stuff that's outdated. I mean, even think of Park Ave's equipment, they've already been there 5 years. The Chromebooks are hitting end of life that was purchased with them, they're no longer being supported. So we're trying to get those plans rolling into place. That's something we haven't done well as a town. I want to say, we focused on a school, but as a community, as a whole, as a town, you know, with our capital plan and technology capital plan and reinvesting in those, making sure we're keeping up with the maintenance and we're funding those things. I mean, it's just always a matter of having the extra cash, and we don't always have the extra cash. But it's something that we're still working on the school end, that we're funding out of our own without going back, asking for money to fund.
Which is a good thing.
Right. Right.
Any other questions or comments? The bottom line is Mrs. Parmley is asking for all the money all the time.
That was just an example. It just made me think of it.
That'll be the quote in the
No.
paper. Moving on under new business, next item is the approval of overnight field trip Bartlett High School Student Council to annual conference. Since my wife is the faculty advisor for Student Council, I will recuse myself from this agenda item and ask Mrs. Siddiqui to please chair it.
Dr. Gogan, can you tell us a little bit about the field trip?
I certainly will. This is an annual field trip that the Student Council does. They go to Hyannis for the MASC State Leadership Conference. Mrs. Hurton takes 4 students with her. They're leaving on March 4th and returning on March 6th. It's a fun activity that I highly promote.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the field trip.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Lori, would you pull the committee?
Yes.
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 Abstain. Next item on the agenda is Equal Education Opportunities Policy, JBB, first reading. Dr. Gogan.
Yes, we have 4 policies that we're bringing to you tonight. They are new policies through the Massachusetts Association for School Committees, and we do not have these policies. Brief overview, this is an equal education opportunities policy, which blends nicely with the Student Opportunity Act that we're going to do, provides equal opportunities to students and ensures that there is a policy and implementation across the district.
Any questions or comments for Dr. Gogan? Just the adopted date, I'm assuming is the date that MASC adopted it?
Yes, I was going to say that.
Okay.
Just cross that off.
To be determined.
Yeah, it would be to be determined. We'll put first read, second read, third read, and then adopted date.
And again, just for those who might be watching, school committee policy, anytime there's a new policy, we go through typically 3 readings. It's reviewed by the members, any changes that are suggested, or sometimes the administrators will come back with additional changes. So assuming there aren't any other questions or comments, this will be the first reading for the Equal Education Opportunities Policy, and we plan to have the second reading at our next meeting. Next item on the agenda is the Homeless Students Enrollment Rights and Services Policy, JFABD, first reading. And I'm always fascinated how we come up with the letters. I'm sure there's a method
There
behind
is some sort of method. I don't know.
Dr. Gogan.
This, again, is another student policy to protect homeless students and their enrollment rights and services. We do many of these things already. This is just putting it in writing and really gets into the specifics. So I would recommend that we follow this policy.
And
We do have a homeless liaison. It happens to be Mrs. Kathleen Barris. And these policies would be in addition to what we're already doing.
Any questions or comments from the members? Hearing none, that would be the first reading of the proposed new homeless students enrollment rights and services policy. Next item on the agenda is the Educational Opportunities for Military Children Policy, JFABE, first reading. Dr. Gogan.
This policy would ensure that we are providing this additional supports to students of military families that move in or out of districts, including their, having their records received and making sure that everything was smooth for them.
I know we don't live obviously close to military establishments, but historically, have we had a high, not a high percentage, but have we had, yeah?
We have a high transient population. Now with moving our centralized registration here, we're going to be able to track that a little bit closer because it's been in the buildings. So I think that that will be.
I'm not saying it's, obviously it's very valuable. I was just curious.
I know we have some, because I know people put it through Sims, so I do know we have some. How many, I don't know, but we could find out.
No need, I was just curious. Any questions or comments related to the first reading for the Educational Opportunities for Military Children policy? Hearing none, we will consider the second reading at our next meeting. Next item on the agenda is Educational Opportunities for Children in Foster Care Policy, JFABF, first reading. Dr. Gogan.
Once again, this is a policy to protect the rights of children in foster care, and we are doing many of these things. As you know, we are obligated to transport students that are in foster care to Webster so that they can remain in their school of origin, and this policy outlines their protected rights.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, this will constitute the first reading of the Educational Opportunities for Children in Foster Care policy. Continuing on with the agenda, next item on the agenda is review, transfer, signing of bills, payroll, and vouchers. We do have a transfer request. Is that approved via signatures or via a voice vote?
Usually they make a motion to approve, and then you do have to sign.
I will entertain a motion to approve the transfer request as submitted, moving speech assistance from Park Ave in the amount of $18,025 to contracted services in the SPED department. They are proposing to move the speech pathology in the Webster Middle School an amount of $15,000, again into contracted services under special ed. And the third transfer is moving speech pathologists from Bartlett. I think there's an H missing. In the amount of $15,000 into contracted services under special ed.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. The total of the transfer request is $48,025. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Laurie, would you poll the committee, please?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Siddiqui,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
there's a motion and a second. Laurie, would you pull the committee, please?
Yes.
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 Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
That's right.
I think it's perfect in here.
Imagine how cold the Senate floor must be.
Yeah.
Keep them awake, because all they're allowed is milk, water, and candy.
Yeah.
I don't care what side of the aisle.